The Atlanta Braves have had some players take home some major personal hardware the last couple of years. On today's episode, I'll give you my predictions for the 2025 season and who will take home Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, MVP, Comeback Player of the Year, all of that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Check out the podcast on X at LockedOn_Braves and on Instagram at Locked On Braves. If you're new and watching this on YouTube, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, leave me a comment down below. If you're listening on the audio version, you can help out by leaving me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. On today's episode, I'm going to give you my early predictions for 2025 awards: MVP, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year. I'm going to do so at the major league level, but also we'll take a look at it at the team level as well, as who I think could win those awards for the Atlanta Braves this year. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you're here with me live, go ahead and give me your predictions. We'll get to that later in the podcast. But let's jump right into it. Team awards predictions for the 2025 season. We'll start with NL MVP, and I'm only going to be looking at the National League side of things right now. And I'm going to be using FanDuel as our odds maker here. Now, disclaimer, I am not a gambler. Do not take my thoughts and opinions here and run to FanDuel and make these bets. I do not encourage you to do that, but I am going to use these for the odds to see who the favorites are and tell you who I think will win it in 2025. So you look over at FanDuel.com and you go to the NL MVP awards odds, and Ohtani is clearly the favorite at plus 155, and then Soto at plus 550, Tatis Jr. at plus 800, Mookie Betts at plus 1300, Kyle Tucker at plus 1400. Those are your top five. And then you have several Braves players who are listed on there. Acuna, the top one at plus 2,000, followed by Matt Olson at plus 4,000, Riley plus 5,000, Ozuna plus 8,000, Michael Harris also at plus 8,000, and Chris Sale at plus 16,000. So some pretty rough odds there if I'm looking at that correctly. But Acuna with the best odds at plus 2,000. I would love to see Acuna come back and win the NL MVP. I just don't think he's going to get the playing time for that to happen, much less I expect this to be somewhat of a down year for him, even when he does come back. Hopefully it's better than 2022, but I can imagine we may never see a season like we saw in 2023 again. So certainly not expecting that type of output, even on a limited basis. But I just don't think Acuna is going to get the playing time to really factor into the NL MVP discussion in 2025. Maybe 2026 could be the season, but not in 2025. I think if anybody from the Braves here has a real shot, it's going to be Austin Riley. And I'm going to talk more about that later. But of this group here, who do I think is going to win the NL MVP? It's probably going to be Ohtani. If he hits and pitches all season, it's just really hard to predict somebody, even somebody as good as Ohtani, to do it for so many years in a row. But if he hits anywhere close to where he did last year, and I have to imagine there's going to be some step back, because same with Ronald, 2023, we may never see again. We may never see a season like we saw from Shohei Ohtani offensively last year. So it would not surprise me if he takes a step back there, not just because of that, but he's also going to be pitching some too. And if they use him like the Angels did, he's going to get some days off after he pitches. So he's probably going to get less at bats. But even if he does, hit 130 games this year, puts up big numbers, hits 30, 40 home runs, and he pitches and is a really good pitcher, I mean, being able to do both of those things is going to give you a huge leg up in the MVP discussion. If you are an elite level hitter and an elite level pitcher, maybe you're not the best at either, but if you are elite level at both, it's kind of hard to justify a reason not to vote for Shohei Ohtani for the MVP. So I think he's got to be the favorite. The only reason I wouldn't pick him is just because of the fact that at some point there's going to be a fall off, I would think. and he may just not get as much. Like, the Dodgers don't need a lot out of him necessarily. The team is so stacked, but I don't really know who else I would pick out of this. Maybe Juan Soto if the Mets have a good year. Maybe if the Mets were to win the division and Soto has a huge year, I could see him being up there. Kyle Tucker is an interesting one because I think the Cubs have a good chance to really go and run away with that NL Central. And if they were to do that and Kyle Tucker were to have a big year, I could see him being in the NL MVP discussion. But outside of those guys, I don't really have a sneaky NL MVP candidate. But let me know if you do. I think it is Ohtani's to lose for sure if he is going to be doing both sides, hitting and pitching. It's a huge advantage when you can be really good at both sides of it. It obviously makes you the most valuable player when you can do that. And like I said, Riley, for the Brave side of things, I think has the best chance of winning the MVP this year. For the NL Cy Young, the odds favorites there are Skeens at plus 220, Wheeler at plus 700, Snell at plus 800, Chris Sale, the reigning NL Cy Young winner, at plus 1100, Corbin Burns at plus 1600, and then they have Strider at plus 3000, Schwellenbach at plus 4500, and Lopez at plus 11,000. So got several Braves pitchers who are listed there. Skeens is the obvious favorite. I'm going to go with Zach Wheeler, though. He's just consistent as they come. He's going to be on a better team. I like Zach Wheeler to win it this year. Snell, when he pitches a full season, he wins it, but that just hardly ever happens, and the Dodgers have no real reason to push him. Burns could be interesting with the Diamondbacks. I think that they could be a really good team and win a lot of games for them. But I would say Burns is probably my favorite. I don't know what to expect from Skeens if the Pirates were to fall out of it. Will they hold him back a little bit? I certainly would. So I'm going to go with Zach Wheeler to win the NL Cy Young. From the Braves side of things, again, I'll save that for the next segment. NL Rookie of the Year. We talked a lot about that yesterday's podcast. You want to go back and give that a listen. But they have Sasaki at plus 200, Dylan Cruz at plus 350, Matt Shaw at plus 400, although they just signed Justin Turner, so probably hurts Matt Shaw's odds a little bit with the Cubs. Bubba Chandler at 8 plus 50 and Jordan Lawler at plus 1100. I think Dylan Cruz is the obvious choice there. Sasaki may have the biggest upside, but as I've said with Ohtani and Snell, the Dodgers are just so good and so deep. There's no reason to really push Sasaki at all this year. NL Manager of the Year, Craig Counsell at plus 500. I talked already about how I think the Cubs could potentially run away with that NL Central this year, and Counsell obviously will get a lot of credit and love because of that, or if that happened. Francona, who's now in the Cincinnati, if you didn't know that, plus 550 to win it this year. Shelton with the Pirates plus 600. Dave Roberts plus 700. I'm sorry. David Roberts may be a great manager. I can make the case that I think he probably should have already done more with what he's been given, but he just can't win manager of the year this season. With the loaded roster that the Dodgers have, I could coach that team to the postseason and likely a World Series. Brian Snitker at plus 950. NL Reliever of the Year, Edwin Diaz at plus 400. Ryan Helsley at plus 470. Raisel Iglesias, the third best odds to win NL Reliever of the Year at plus 500. Tanner Scott, plus 550. Robert Suarez, plus 700. What's interesting, I think, about this list, other than Iglesias being third on it, Ryan Helsley could be traded. Robert Suarez could be traded at some point this year. And then NL Comeback Player of the Year, where the Braves have many candidates. They have Alcantara of the Marlins at plus 360, Acuna at plus 500, Strider at plus 550, Woodruff at plus 600, Matt McClain at plus 650, and Kodai Senga at plus 900. I think you throw Ian Anderson in this mix as well as a Comeback Player of the Year candidate, but obviously Acuna and Strider have really good chances. I think Strider wins this award. That's the one Braves player that I will predict to win a major award this year. I think Strider's going to come back and have a great season and win Comeback Player of the Year. But let me know what you think. Let me know who you think wins these awards. Do you think any Braves players have a legitimate shot at winning any of the major awards this upcoming season? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Next, I will get to the team side of things and who will win these awards for just the Braves. Who will be their MVP? Who will be their breakout, their Cy Young, their unsung hero, their Rookie of the Year? I'll get into all of those here next. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage of up to $5 million. No medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you'd think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedon. Go to selectquote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedon. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Thank you as always for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of today. And again, we'll be back with you all week. Got a special guest joining the show on Thursday to break down everything happening in Braves camp. So look forward to that. And obviously our mailbag episode coming up on Friday, a full week going on here today. All right, let's get back into the team awards predictions here. And let's look at specifically for the Atlanta Braves. I think if you look at the team MVP for the Atlanta Braves this year, I kind of already gave this away. I think it's going to be Austin Riley. I'm really excited about this upcoming season for Austin Riley. He's going into his age 28 season. He had 3 straight years of being a 5+ F4 player before 2024 happened. And I think we still haven't seen the best of Austin Riley. I could see him hitting 290, 300 with 40 home runs, 100+ RBI, and being a 6-7 F4 type of player. I also wouldn't mind seeing him run a little bit. I think he's capable. He's faster than you think. I'm not talking about a lot here, but could he get to double-digit steals? I think it's possible. I think he's capable of doing it. And if he keeps getting better defensively, although the metrics haven't really caught on, and little talk about that on social media actually on Tuesday about whether or not Austin Riley actually is a good defender. I don't know how you could watch the Braves all year long and not think that Austin Riley isn't a plus defender, no matter what the metrics try to tell you. And as you know, you listen to the podcast, metrics are fine. And I sometimes will look at them to back up what I'm seeing or to verify what I'm seeing. But Austin Riley is great at coming in on the baseball. He is as good as anybody on the short hop, something that they're not going to pick up in any type of metric. He has a good arm. He makes all of the plays. The only downside of Austin Riley is that, yes, he doesn't have a lot of range side to side, but he makes all the plays. Again, he's tremendous on that do or die short hop type of play. He does that as well as anybody that I see in the game. And I think he's great coming in on the baseball. The metrics don't particularly agree with me on that, but again, my eyes, when I watch the game, I see Austin Riley charge a slow grounder, and he makes the play almost every time. So I think he's a great defender. I think he's continuing to get even better at that. I don't care what the metrics try to tell me on it. I think he's an above average defender and potentially somebody that could win a Gold Glove someday. Although there are a lot of good, defensive third basemen, but either way, despite even the defensive side of things, I don't think we've seen the full potential of an Austin Riley and what he could do in a perfect offensive season. I think he's capable of hitting close to 300 with 40 home runs. And if he does that, he's going to be in the MVP discussion. And I just feel like this is the year for Austin Riley. A lot of people seem to be somewhat down on him because of last year, but that was mostly injury related and just the first half of the season. The ball wasn't flying quite as much, and we don't know what the baseball is going to do going into the season. We never do. But, from June on last year until he got injured, he was Austin Riley. And again, I think there could even be another level for Austin Riley in 2025. So I'm predicting that he will be the team MVP. The team breakout in 2025. I've gone back and forth on this one and whether or not to consider Michael Harris a breakout candidate since he's already had 2 big seasons. But many of you had tried to tell me in the past that he can still be a breakout candidate because there is another level there. And so Michael Harris is my breakout player for 2025, who I think will win the breakout award for the Atlanta Braves. Where he bats in the lineup does affect his counting stats. His run and RBI totals have never been great. And I still think with his current profile, he belongs in the 5th, 6th spot in the lineup just because of his low on base ability. And I think there's more untapped power there as well. And I think he's just more comfortable in that 5, 6 spot in the lineup. You can certainly bat him second against righties for sure. But I think, putting him in the middle of the order is just fine. I think there's a 30 homer season in there for Michael Harris. I think he has that in him. We already know he can hit 290 to 300. He has the batting average potential, and I think he can steal 20 plus bags. So you're talking about somebody who, again, has the potential to be a 300 hitter, hit 30 home runs, steal 20 plus bags. You combine that with the fact that he is going to win a Gold Glove one day, and maybe it is in 2025, and you're looking at somebody who's going to be a 6 F4 type of player. There's that type of season in there for Michael Harris, and he is still really, really young, but he's going to have that type of season at some point when he can stay healthy and put a full year together. I'm hoping that's in 2025. For the Cy Young, the team Cy Young here, obviously, Chris Sale was the NL Cy Young winner last year, but I'm not picking him for the Braves Cy Young in 2025. I'm actually going to go with Spencer Schwellenbach. And part of the reason for this is just assuming there will be some regression for Sale and Lopez this year. And as I talked about with Sale when I did our regression and bounce back candidates episode, I don't think that Sale is going to fall apart and be a 4 ERA type of pitcher. You're talking about a guy falling back from a low 2s ERA to maybe a high 2, low 3 ERA. I still think Chris Sale is going to be very good. He was healthy for most of the season last year up until the very end. I would not be surprised if we get an IL stint during the year for Chris Sale this time around. That's just the nature of baseball, no matter who it is, that if a pitcher's fully healthy one year, there's probably going to be some sort of hiccup for them the next year, unless you are a Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, or Corbin Burns, guys who have been durable for many years in a row now. So I am predicting Spencer Schwellenbach is actually going to be the team Cy Young this season. As I said earlier, with Spencer Strider being the comeback player of the year, would not surprise me if he becomes the Braves Cy Young this season. I'm very excited. And I think that if we see it, that first bullpen session that we see of Spencer Strider and he's touching 97, 98, everybody's going to be back on the bandwagon. Hopefully that happens, and hopefully that velo is up there, and hopefully he can hold that velo. And then you're going to see a lot of people start to get really excited about Spencer Strider again. But I think Spencer Schwellenbach, I know he was great last year, and maybe there's some people worried about a sophomore slump for him, but consider this with Spencer Schwellenbach. His first 6 starts last year, 31 2/3 innings, 32 hits allowed, 9 walks, 20 earned runs, 32 strikeouts. That's a 5.68 ERA and a 1.29 whip. This kid was learning on the fly at the big league level, only had 2 starts at Double-A before the Braves called him up. And credit to them, they let him take his lumps early on. They saw the potential and what he could be. And after those first 6 starts from July on, he pitched 92 innings, a 2.54 ERA, and a 0.96 whip. So once he settled in, he got better and better as the year went along. And as I've said many times on here, I don't worry so much about tape being out on Spencer Schwellenbach now, because he faced the Mets and the Phillies 3 times last year and got better against them pretty much every time. So guys who outsaw him multiple times last year, teams that had tape on him, had seen him, still weren't able to figure him out. And he just got even better. And I just think he's that type of pitcher. So I think Schwellenbach's going to have a big season. You're going to see an innings jump for him as well, probably getting close to 28, 30 starts this year. So he is my Braves Cy Young prediction for the season. The team's unsung hero, or I think biggest surprise, is probably the better title for this. I'm going to go with the guy that the Braves just brought in, and I'm going to go with Buck Farmer. With the question marks in the bullpen, the Braves are taking a lot of chances on some unknowns to begin the year and some has-beens, hoping for one of 2 of them to pop off and really help them in the bullpen. And one of those arms, I think, could be the newly acquired Buck Farmer, like we talked about on yesterday's episode. I don't think he's going to be in reliever of the year contention or anything like that. But similar to what I talked about for Jordan Weems, I think he could bring a 2023 Nick Anderson type of production. Somebody that has a 3-4 ERA. Again, I'm not expecting anything outstanding here. 15 holds, and more so where I think he could be impactful. Like I said, there's a huge need for the Braves in the 7th and 8th inning from the right side. And if he's able to work himself up into that role and become a setup man for the Braves for a good portion of the year, that's going to be huge for this team. I think when you look at it, whoever's going to be your unsung hero or your surprise this year, I think it's probably going to come from the bullpen, whether it is a Farmer or a Weems. I had Daysbel Hernandez here first, but I think a lot of people are already kind of expecting big things from Daysbel Hernandez, so I took him off the list and kind of went a little bit deeper than that. But I think whoever that big surprise is this year, I think it's going to come from the reliever rank. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe a Nacho Alvarez comes up and gets an opportunity and surprises. Maybe Jared Kelenic figures things out and surprises, although I'm not sure where he gets the at-bats unless there is an injury, and I certainly don't want an injury to any of the Braves outfielders to happen. But let me know what you think, because I think that's certainly one that's up for debate. All of these are up for debate, but let me know who you think could be the big surprise for the Atlanta Braves this year. And then the last one here, and this is one we really covered on yesterday's episode, so I'll encourage you to go back and give that a listen. But the team's rookie of the year, I think, is going to be AJ Smith-Shawver. I've talked a lot lately about how excited I am for him this upcoming season. There's even some talk, according to Lindsey Crosby of Braves Today, that he's adding a cutter this year, which, if that's the case, I'm hoping that is in an effort to, one, get people off his fastball and try to limit the home runs. One thing that concerns me with AJ Smith-Shawver, there's a couple of things that concern me, but it is the big home run total. A home run per 9 over 2 the last couple of years. That's got to be corrected. You can't have the struggles with control that lead to walks and plus home runs at the big league level, or you're going to get absolutely destroyed. So he's got to find something in the pitch mix in order to limit home runs. I don't know that a cutter necessarily does that, but I hope it does. And I hope it's a good one, and I hope it does help him keep the ball in the ballpark. But I think AJ Smith-Shawver has the chance to have a Schwellenbach type of season, not quite to the level that Schwellenbach had last year, which was just unreal, 3.35 ERA, but maybe more of a 3.75 ERA, 120 innings, 130, 135 strikeouts, something like that. I think he will be the most impactful rookie for the Atlanta Braves this year. But those are my thoughts on the team awards. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Who do you think will win these awards for the Atlanta Braves, and what other predictions that you have for the upcoming season? But you can also come back and grill me later in the year when these things absolutely don't come true and you were right. Come back and let me know, but it'll be okay. All right, next we'll get into some of the news from camp, including who will be starting the Grapefruit League opener for the Atlanta Braves, and will likely be who starts the season for the Braves on opening day. We'll get into that here next. So the Braves did announce the Grapefruit League opener, or starter rather, is going to be Chris Sale on Saturday against the Twins. Yes, we will get Braves baseball this Saturday, not on TV, unfortunately, the first game, but we'll have 24 of the Braves spring training games broadcasted on television. But Chris Sale going to start the first game. He will likely start on opening day as well. No need to kind of map that out at this point. The Braves usually adjust things midway through to make sure that they get their rotation set up for opening day. But it would not be surprising at all if the reigning NL Cy Young winner, and a guy that I think is, honestly, you look at all the guys who have gone out this year, Chris Sale's becoming one of the leaders on this team in just his second season. But when you talk about a Charlie Morton gone, a Travis d'Arnaud gone, Chris Sale being the veteran and somebody who obviously had a great year last season, he's become one of the leaders of this team. So I think it makes sense to have him start on opening day. So again, he will start the Grapefruit League opener. That in itself is great to hear that he's on track. He's the first guy out after the way things ended last year with the back issues. Great to see him back out there, throwing the baseball, getting ramped up, starting the first spring training game, getting him on track to likely start opening day in San Diego for the Atlanta Braves. Hurston Waldrop is reintroducing a curveball into his pitch mix. I don't know how to feel about this. I talked about with AJ Smith-Shawver, if he is adding a cutter, I hope that is intentional to try to limit the home runs and maybe get hitters off his fastball a little bit. For Waldrop, I just don't know what the curveball is. Already a pitch that you're wanting to throw out of the zone. And look, that's what he does well, is throws pitches out of the zone. So I guess adding another pitch that you are supposed to be doing that with could be helpful. I think Hurston Waldrop needs to focus on what he has. I think he needs to focus on that fastball and how he can improve it and get better shape on that fastball and be able to throw the splitter for strikes when he wants to. I know that's a pitch you generally want to throw outside of the strike zone, but I think it's good enough. He can show it inside the strike zone to get hitters off of it and freeze hitters. And we'll see. Again, I'm not nearly as excited about Hurston Waldrop adding the curveball as I am in the potential of an AJ Smith-Shawver adding a cutter, because I think that could be intentional. I just think Waldrop needs to focus on what he currently has and how to make it work. But hopefully it is something good for Waldrop, that he can use. But we'll see once we get in spring training. As far as some news around Major League Baseball, Adam Ottavino and the Red Sox agreed to a minor league deal. Justin Turner signs for $6 million with the Cubs. Vlad Jr. expects to become a free agent and not sign any extension with Toronto. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with Vlad Jr. If the Blue Jays fall out of contention early, which I kind of expect in that tough division where you're already going up against the Yankees and the Orioles and the Red Sox. What do the Blue Jays do with Vlad Jr. if it's looking like he's not going to come back? Do they trade him? What kind of value do they get? Do they trade a Bo Bichette? Blue Jays could be an interesting team come the trade deadline this year. And apparently there's some drama in Boston about where everyone is going to play. As you know, the Red Sox signed Alex Bregman, who is a really good defensive third baseman, but they have Rafael Devers there, who apparently doesn't want to come off of the position and doesn't think that he should have to. So a little bit of drama going over there. Some comments from Tristan Casas as well. So some interesting things happening in a Red Sox camp for sure. All right, just checking the chat section real quick. So we got a couple of minutes left here. Laves, I agree with Jake. Should focus on the fastball, slider, and splitter. I think so too for Waldrop. Just focus on what you got. Unless you just feel really good about this curveball, but you dumped it for a reason. Again, I think for Waldrop, just focus on the pitches that you already have, fine-tuning those. And if those can work for you, you're going to be a really good pitcher. Doc asked if Cam Caminiti was invited to spring training. He was not. I wouldn't expect that. He's really young, and he only threw 2 innings, I think, 2 or 3 innings professional ball last year. Richard Ryle says Schwelly top 5 for Cy Young. I wouldn't surprise me. I mean, if he can have a low 3 ERA, 170, 175 innings next year, close to probably at 170, 175 innings, he'd probably be more like 190 strikeouts. But you're talking about a whip around 1. It's likely going to be a top 5 Cy Young finish. And I think that's well within the range for a Spencer Schwellenbach. AJ Evans in 1 year still has become a leader for this team, leads by example. I agree wholeheartedly. Even when he came before he threw a pitch last year, all preseason last year, they were talking about, the impact that Sale has had, the fire that he was bringing to the team. So even really before he threw a pitch for the Braves, he was starting to become one of those leaders. But then you go out and do what he did last year, and it just emphasizes the fact that Chris Sale is a leader of this team, and he's needed with, as I mentioned, some of the losses that they've had. Doc's Cards, comeback player of the year, Strider is a Cy Young finalist. Again, would not surprise me at all. I don't think Strider's going to miss more than 2 or 3 weeks to begin the season. Now, he may cap out at 25 starts this year, and that might not be enough to get him in the Cy Young finalists if it's 25 starts, 150-ish innings, something like that. But, even in 150 innings, if he goes low 3 ERA, 150 innings, he's probably going to be 170, 175 strikeouts. I could see him getting some Cy Young votes, maybe not top 5, but I think he's going to pitch a lot, and I think he's going to pitch really well this year. Doug Count says, AJ Smith-Shawver's fastball is so flat. Hope he figures that out. It actually has pretty good shape to it and did pretty well in the minors last year, but I do agree hitters, if they're sitting on it, especially I think the bigger thing with AJ Smith-Shawver is just that that velocity can tick down. He can come out throwing 96, 97, 98 to begin a game, and then you see it kind of taper off and he sits more 94, 95, and then it becomes a little bit easier to square up. But I do hope if he does introduce that cutter, and throw it mid-90s, that it gets hitters off the fastball a little bit more. So it could become, a big thing for him if he's able to do that and introduce a cutter off of that fastball. Doc's Cards, I'm predicting a deadline deal for Cease. That could certainly be interesting. Brooks, Stevens, Smith-Shawver will end up a big bullpen piece. I don't think so. I think Smith-Shawver is one that is going to stick in the rotation. I said this during my prospects rankings. I think the likely outcome for Smith-Shawver is that he's either a top of the rotation arm or he's a very solid 3 or 4 starter. And even at a 3 or 4 starter, that's going to be more valuable than what he gives you in the pen. But thank you all for joining me here today. Laro Bond, I don't know why you think I'm mad. I'm sorry if you're getting that. Jake just refuting these comments like a madman. Sorry, trying to get to all these on here. Sorry if I missed some in there, Laro, but I appreciate your support and being here. And nobody's making me mad with these questions. I love these questions. Absolutely. Keep sending them in. I appreciate it. Jeffrey Humphreys, Chris Sale is a beast. Doc's Cards, 13K by opening day. Doug Counts, I love his potential, Jake. Hope we see it come to life for sure. Absolutely. Duval 287. Do you think Sale picks up where he left off? I think Chris Sale is going to be great. I have no questions or concerns about the productivity of Chris Sale in 2025, but I am a little concerned at his age. He was mostly healthy for all of last year. It would not shock me. Those back issues, they're something that can be lingering and come back. I think the only real concern that I think many Braves fans have is, can he stay healthy for a full season again? And even last year, he didn't quite stay healthy for the full season. He missed his last start of the year, and he missed the postseason. So that's my only real concern with Chris Sale is, can he stay healthy for a full season again? But I do not question the ability for Chris Sale. I think when he pitches, he's still going to be one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. All right, that will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Reaper YT, Protect PR, Lav S, Jeffrey Humphreys, Glenn Dice. Thank you so much for joining today. Glenn says we are overlooking the fact that we have a better pitching staff than the Dodgers and a lot better on the offensive side if we're healthy. I love my Braves. That's a great comment there. Look, the Dodgers lineup is great. It's the best in baseball on paper, but the Braves can certainly pitch right there with them. And I think the Dodgers have the same injury concerns in their rotation that maybe the Braves do. So I think it's a lot closer than many people want to believe. All right, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below. Follow us on social media at @shortstopball and at @LockedOn_Braves, and over on Instagram at LockedOnBraves. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next.